All right. Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the library board meeting, April 20th, 2021. Let's call the meeting to order at 5:05 p.m. Will you please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm so tempted to do this after. Amen. I always want to say amen.
Well, I don't know if you could hear us okay here in the boardroom, guys, but we still haven't quite gotten the syncing up of our voices in unison right. And so we're sitting here waiting for you guys to catch up a little bit. And yeah, all fun stuff. All right, can we have roll call, please?
Sure. Alderman Wolf. Present. Aaron.
Here.
Nancy.
Here.
Michelle.
Here.
Tony.
Here.
Gail.
Here.
Tracy.
Here.
Barb.
Here.
And Camille is excused. We have a quorum.
All right, thank you. Statement of public notice.
This meeting was noticed in accordance with the open meeting law.
Thank you. In public comment, this evening we do have an email that came to me back on April 11th that we'll read into the record. This comes from a library employee concerning possible changes to the mask mandate this evening. And so I'll read the email into the record here. If you can't hear me at home, please just speak up and let us know. I'm doing my best to be loud and clear enough here. So this email comes from Stacy Rogowski. She says, "Hello, my name is Stacy Rogowski, and I am a circulation aide at the library. It has been brought to our attention that the library board will be thinking about changing the mask mandate at the library at the next meeting. I would like to let you know how an employee feels about that decision and hope that my feelings will be expressed at the next meeting via this email. We have recently changed a lot of our policies to go back to how we ran prior to the pandemic. I feel that those changes are fine and are in line with the CDC recommendations. However, I would not support and would be very upset if we would let people in the library without a mask. The majority of employees that work at the circulation desk are older and they have the most direct interaction with our patrons. All of the employees have not been able to be vaccinated yet, myself included, and I would really appreciate it if the library board would not take that protection away from me yet. The CDC still supports that, and a lot of the other businesses that have mask mandates haven't yet removed those. Please let's keep the mask mandate in place until the world is a little more, quote, in quotes, normal. Thank you for letting me express my feelings, and I would appreciate it if this email would be read at the next meeting. Thank you, Stacy Rogowski." Again, I received that back on April 11th. So we'll just read that into the record here under public comment. And if we need to reference this again, or if board members have questions and want to bring it up again, we can do so under that particular discussion item this evening. Any other public comments, Brittany, that you're aware of? Anything that came in at all?
Nope, no other public comments.
Okay, and certainly no one here this evening, so thank you. We'll move into consent agenda. 2 items on the agenda this evening. First one being the approval of minutes for the March 16, 2021 meeting, and to place on file the library financial reports for the month of March 2021. So at this point, I will entertain a motion for approval of the consent agenda, please.
May I ask a question first?
Usually discuss after.
It's better,
Yeah,
it's better to have the motion on the floor and then do discussion after that,
Yeah.
depending, I guess, on what the question is.
Right, so,
The question,
well, let's, is there a motion to approve?
I motion we approve.
I'll second.
Okay, so Barb will motion for approval, and Tracy seconds. Now discussion.
Thank
Your
you.
question.
I
Thank you.
just have a question about the cost of light bulbs.
Okay,
I wrote, wow, there, the bottom of page 6.
Page 6. Yeah, so those are, obviously they're not regular
Very special, obviously.
screw-in light bulbs,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
And those are purchased by our maintenance for the particular light fixtures that we have, so.
Okay, it doesn't even say how many.
Right.
Yeah, I
So-
confess I do not know
You
how
know,
many.
when I first read it, I thought, well, maybe it's 300 light bulbs. I don't know.
Yeah, these are more commercial grade,
Okay.
not for one's bedside lamp light
Okay.
bulb.
Would you go across to page 7 towards the bottom for Siemens fire service,
Yes. Okay, explanation on that?
please?
Yep. So Siemens, we have a fire alarm in our building, and that system. We have tubes running throughout the building. If there were to be a fire, the air would release and fill the tubes with water to go to the sprinkler system.
Okay.
We have a service that monitors those alarms. Because if there were ever to be a fire, they would let us know, like, hey, the alarm's been triggered. Because, of course, there are times when we're not in the building. And they do maintenance on that facility, and we also pay them for monitoring the alarm. So.
Thank you.
just a note, I love the name of that business right below Siemens, Sneezing Cow Inc.
I know that was an author, Michael Perry. He did an author
that.
talk, but apparently that's the company he goes under. So I've
is
never
great.
had that before. Yeah, clever.
All right, any other questions or concerns regarding anything to do with the consent agenda this evening?
I always have a couple.
Sure.
On page 6, the Baker and Taylor Group, I just have a general question.
Yes.
Are we in a major acquisition mode, would you call it? Is there anything like that would be of interest to the board, given the expenses?
Nope. I would say that's it's the start of the new year, and so publishers are coming out with new materials.
Okay, just curious.
Yeah, but I wouldn't say that we had any special projects going on.
I'm sorry. You're kind of going in and out on me. I apologize if I'm talking over you.
Yep.
Okay.
There are no special projects.
On page 6, right above the light bulbs, I just was wondering what public MFD means, because right away I think Muskego Fire Department.
Sure.
I don't know what that means. So.
MFD stands for multifunction device, but it's just a fancy way of saying our copier scanner machine. So Impact is the company that provides our industrial copiers, one for the public and one for our staff end. And so that is the cost of leasing that public copier.
Okay. And then forgive me, I think I've asked you this before, but on page 8, the expenditures that go to the Waukesha County Treasurer, why do they go to the Waukesha County Treasurer?
The Waukesha County is the fiscal agent for the Bridges Library System.
Okay.
And
right.
so, yep.
Never mind. All right. And then on number 9. Looking at library fines and all that kind of stuff. Are you feeling any differently about library fines at the moment? We still going to keep doing that for a while? Just general answer. I'm not looking for specifics or anything like that. But, now that we're changing and dealing with other items, are we going to revisit fines, do you think, somewhere down the road?
Revisit fines as in going fine-free as opposed to issuing fines? Or do you mean something else?
We were very relaxed about fines before, and I'm not saying that shouldn't continue. I'm just asking if you're planning any changes.
Fines are back to normal. So with the end of
they are.
Yep, yeah, we're with the end of quarantining materials. There's no need to backdate items, and so if an item is overdue, it's going to be.
Why I was asking. So I guess it'll take time to come back.
Yep.
I have a quick question on that because someone approached me because so many public libraries are now going away from fining people because they found that kid has an overdue book and they can't afford it, so they don't come back. So someone did ask me about that, and I did look it up, and there are some public libraries that are going away from fines.
Yeah, so and that is definitely a topic. I would be happy to do a bit of research and do a presentation for the board on at some point. We've had a couple libraries that took the opportunity during COVID in our system to move to fines free, and it just, in really brief, that means no overdue fines. It does not mean no replacement fees. Okay. So if someone dropped a book in the bathtub, dog chewed it, they would still have to pay to replace the item. They have done studies to show that people are more likely to maintain a positive relationship with the library, and it just makes libraries more accessible to not have overdue fines. Of course, the counter fear people will say is, what's the incentive to bring the items back on time? They could keep it out. There's a ton of research to answer all those questions. I don't really have it in front of me, but I would be happy to bring that type of research before the board at some point. Obviously, one of the things to consider is that we, in a normal year, get about $17,000 in fines and revenue for the city, and that would be revenue lost. And either we would have to make that up on our end, or the city would just have to acknowledge that we wouldn't be sending them that revenue, and that would be a very important part of that conversation. So happy to have that presentation for you guys at some point, if that's of interest.
May I just add something to that, though? It seems to me that if we lifted that, we're taking a responsibility away from people, and people need to be responsible for their actions. And it just seems,
They have done huge studies on it, and like I said, I can show you guys all that stuff. It's not a win one way or the other. There are benefits and drawbacks to it, but someday when I have a little time, I'll bring it before you. It's an interesting discussion.
It is interesting.
But you bring a good point up. So thanks, Tony. That's definitely a good point. So
thank you.
On page 10. The budget worksheet, I just was curious, in the percent actual to budget column, I'm seeing just under 21%, and we're basically approaching the 5th month of the year. Why have we spent so little money, if I'm understanding that column correctly? Or is it just that the big stuff is still to come?
Yeah, I think that I wouldn't say that there's anything that I've not been paying. And the start of this year, I've just been devoting to some other projects that maybe haven't included, purchasing processing supplies and things like that. So a lot of our larger expenses do come closer to the end of the year. So
what I'm thinking is that that stuff will come later. So, okay, thank you.
Yep.
That's all I have.
Any other questions or concerns regarding consent agenda items? All right, hearing nothing else, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda this evening, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, passes unanimously. Thank you. President's report. I have no formal report this evening. One of these days, I keep saying it, I'll promise you I'll have some sort of formal report one of these days, but not tonight. So I'm sorry to disappoint you once again. So we'll move into the director's report. Brittany.
All right. I'll just pick out a few things to highlight. We're very excited to have Melinda Myers coming. She's a popular radio personality, specifically on gardens. There is still time to register. We are collaborating with 9 other libraries. That's why we can afford her. Otherwise, we normally wouldn't be able to. And as of a couple weeks ago, we had 300 people signed up. Now, that's from across our library system, because, of course, these other libraries are advertising and pushing it out, too. But either way, a program that our staff created and came up with and have run the marketing for, and so that's a huge boon for them that they've created such an exciting event for the community.
Did I read it's virtual, right?
It is virtual, yeah.
She's good, though.
Is she? Oh, wonderful. I'm so
And good
glad.
timing on that, before that garden walk.
Yes,
Yeah.
everything is intentional, I assure you. We've been trying
I
to.
know you.
A lot of the things like our take and makes for our kids this month have a garden theme. The garden bookmark
Yep, I
art
see that.
contest, all of that was
Yep.
trying to fuel towards advertising this program. So yeah, hopefully that will pay off for us. Oh, let's see what else. Prepping for summer reading planning, and just moving along. We did end the quarantine of library materials because, as we now know from science, surface transmission of COVID is very low. So that's great. Items can now be returned outdoor, indoors. We're tracking fourth in the system for new card creation out of 24 libraries. So lots of people are coming in to get library cards, which is great. Starting to see our numbers certainly recover, our usage numbers and whatnot.
And thank you for that. I appreciate that, because Women's Club uses that, and it's a plus.
Yes, absolutely. I did a huge audit, for lack of a better term, of all of our modifications, and we went through and we picked apart everything that was no longer necessary. So you can see we did make a lot of changes in March and April. Our library hours, this was really a small one. We were only opening 1 hour later, Monday through Thursday. Otherwise, we've been our normal hours since July of 2020. But since we could end quarantine, we no longer had an additional step in our workflow processes. So good to be back to our normal hours. Good to be done quarantining. No more children's appointments. Increased meeting room occupancy. Starting to plan some outdoor programs and some limited indoor programs for adults in June. Added computer stations. Mobile app launched. It's been an exhausting couple of months. Lots of really exciting things going on. And so just a shout out to the app. It's a digital library card. So people can just use their smartphones and they can have multiple family members on their account. So hopefully that will help our patrons.
Brittany, what is the app called?
The app is, if you looked up Cafe Libraries, it would show up in the different app stores.
Oh, it's just a Cafe Libraries. It's not a specific name.
Yeah,
okay.
It's for our entire library system. So that app and that barcode you could go to any library if you wanted to go to New Berlin, Big Bend, whatnot. And then the wireless presentation software that we have now, that's really helpful for our patrons and for staff. They don't have to be plugged into an HDMI cord in the corner. They can sort of wander about or sit where they want. So that's an exciting feature we can now add to the meeting room. And
I was just going to say the app is awesome because both my kids have library cards and like to check out their own stuff. And now with the single app, I can access all three of our accounts and make sure everything's not overdue, even though sometimes it is.
That is awesome.
I can do the renewals and I can, make sure everybody's on top of their stuff. So way to go. Library system.
I'm so glad. Yeah, I was on the tech committee for that, and this was a long time coming. We were certainly excited to get this app moving. There was lots of demo testing we did in the past couple of months, so hopefully there's no major glitches. But yeah, the digital card on its own is helpful. The other stuff is nice to manage and check accounts, but I think that digital card will really be a benefit to our patrons.
Is it blue?
Sort of a greenish teal. Okay. Yep. So yeah, and the feature that has not dropped for that app yet that is coming is the push notifications, so people can sign up for that through the app, and then we can send out like, hey, this program is coming up through the phone and through the app, which is a really exciting way to market to people, but they haven't developed that part of the app yet, so that's coming. And a later update. The shredding event is on May 15th. We're very excited. We're getting lots of calls about that. I think people have been doing lots of spring cleaning. And obviously this is, we positioned this date right after taxes, so I think people will have plenty of reasons to shred things. Next board meeting is May 18th.
Are you moving on from that?
Yes.
The updates?
Yes.
On letter D in the training, it said that you attended a webinar on how to respond to prejudice comments in public settings.
Yep.
Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah. There is a trainer called Ryan Dowd. He he runs the largest homeless shelter in Chicago, and he wrote a book called, what was it called? Oh my gosh.
Don't worry.
I'm blanking. Anyway, he runs a lot of training sessions for librarians because what he found is people experiencing homelessness often interact with library staff, and he found that library staff weren't equipped to necessarily always know, like, okay, what do I say and do? What if this situation occurs? And he has really branched into other topics as well, and this topic was just about if a comment of prejudice is made, what do you respond? How do you respond? What's a way to sort of salvage a relationship, maintain service levels with that person, but also, what if everyone starts looking around and says, like, oh my gosh, are you, I'm in that group that prejudice comment was made. Does that mean the library doesn't welcome me? So it's sort of like triaging a situation that might escalate, and how do you make sure that situation doesn't escalate?
Okay.
So
the reason it shot out at me was because in the last several days, I've had at least, I believe it's 8 phone calls about a flag that's flying on Racine Avenue that's offending many, many people. And since I'm a friend of the mayor, I've had these calls saying, can you talk? I don't know the mayor. Can you talk to the mayor about it? And I just wondered if that would fall under this. It's a very offensive flag, and I don't think we want it in our. You must go past it every time.
Where is it?
It's, where Indian is, the motorcycle.
Oh, yeah.
And then just north of that is a little ammunition shop.
Oh, yeah.
And then there's 3 little houses.
Okay.
The middle house is flying a flag that says F. Biden.
Yeah, well, we should probably.
No matter who it says, I don't.
You're right.
Yeah.
Think it belongs.
Maybe we should. Yeah, I don't want to stray too far from the agenda, but to answer your question, it was sort of like how to deal with when shocking statements occur, really, and you could apply. It was about technically prejudice comments, but it could really be about anything. Like when a shocking comment occurs, how can you maintain your composure? How can you protect those around you? How can you maintain the relationship with the person who said it so you can keep serving them? Yeah, it was a really interesting training. I learned some new techniques.
It just flew out at me because I've been handling these flag phone calls.
I'm so glad I'm not observant.
Same here. These days, I just get up, I go to work, and I go back home.
I've never noticed it.
Yeah, haven't heard anything about that.
Yeah.
Go to work and come home.
Yeah.
That's what
I just find it odd that they call you about that, but
the Friends Garden Walk.
The word is offensive.
but just go to that person and talk to them.
It's still freedom of speech.
I know that's why the police wouldn't do anything about it, but I don't want to digress.
Yeah. The Friends Garden Walk tickets go on sale May 15th. We've been having a lot of really exciting conversations with some local businesses that are partnering with us, and just everything from a wine tasting at the local vineyard to an orchard tour to special beverage named by Vintage Grounds for the day to lots of just different really fun things. Our community garden will be up by then, so we'll have a staff member talk about the community garden. We got some free seed packets donated, so we'll hand those out. There will be a tree planting, a prairie walk, so lots of really cool things. So hopefully it'll be a good fundraiser for the Friends. Like I said, it's the first time we've ever done it, so lots of build up and lots of excitement about it.
Do you have a price tag on those?
$15 for the ticket.
And where are they available?
They'll start being sold on May 15th at the library.
Here,
yep.
Okay.
We have lots of marketing that we haven't launched yet just because we had a few details that changed sort of late in the game, and so we're scrambling to make those edits. But we'll have posters and little save-the-date quarter sheets. The garden bookmarks are going to have an advertisement on the back of those that we hand out. Obviously, social media campaigns, reaching out to local community groups. So hoping lots of hard work on the part of staff and the Friends. So excited excited to do that.
I need to excuse myself from the meeting now. I have to go to another meeting, so.
All
right, everybody take care. Thanks.
Take care,
You too,
Alderman
thank you.
Wolf.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye. All right.
All right.
Any questions, concerns regarding the director's report?
The grants that you didn't get, did they give you reasons why?
They didn't. They sort of gave that general tagline of, we received so many applications and could only select a few. So.
I'm just curious if it was like, oh, you forgot to add this page, or you know what I mean, something that was correctable.
Yeah.
Okay.
Lots of people looking for money right now, so.
All right. Well, if nothing else regarding the director's report, thank you, Brittany. Looks like we've certainly been hard at work, and we have some exciting things coming up in the pipeline here at the library, so good stuff. Unfinished business, no unfinished business this evening, but of course we do have several new business items this evening, so we'll get right to it. First item being discussion and possible action regarding the approval of allowable cost worksheet.
Yeah, and I provided the background info here about what it is, the purpose of it. All those numbers come straight from the annual report or anticipated numbers for this year.
Where are you, Bert?
Page 16 and 17. And double checked the numbers so they are accurate. So yeah, I'm actually just looking for a motion to approve the signing of it so we can send it on to the library system. It just helps us helps figure out county funding for the system and the libraries.
All right. So at this point, let's look for a motion to approve this document. Okay. I think Tracy got it first. Is that okay? Do you want to fight over it? Do you want to belittle each other, fight over it?
I can second if that's...
No, that's okay.
No, I'll second.
Okay. I'm sorry, guys. This is like my social hour these days. So I have to be a little lighthearted and have some fun here. All right. So you got that. So we'll give Tracy the motion here. Okay. It's been seconded. Any questions, concerns?
Gail here. All the forms we look at and all the numbers we look at, I don't understand this one. I don't know if I'm the only one. Could be. If I am, then I will back out of asking any questions. Am I the only one?
We haven't
doesn't get this
yet.
I mean, we tell the county that we're going to spend a certain amount of money so they can work on budgeting. Is that kind of what this is? Okay.
Yeah.
Then why do the numbers not make any sense? I mean, between 2020 and 2021, for an example, all their operating income, $19,000, then up to $33,300, and then indirect cost funding $65,000. They're the same. I mean, I don't understand it. Maybe I don't need to understand it. It just is. And then when you look at library capital and debt, there were $0 in 2020 and $227,000 projected for 2021. I mean, it's just not making sense to me. I don't. But I may be the only one.
Well,
if I am, I will back out.
The capital, we didn't have any capital projects in 2020. That's why that's 0. But in 2021, we have the carpeting project and the YA redesign and the
capital projects last year. Okay, that explains that one. Can we go up to all of their operating income? I'm not. What does the county glean from this form that they can put $1,402,836 in the Muskego column? I'm just not getting it, and I don't want to waste everybody's time on this. I'm just not understanding it.
In general, they need to know how libraries are funded so that they can figure out how to provide additional county funding. And I don't know what their formula is. That formula is a level of complexity I admit to not have a perfect understanding of. But they need that number so that they can plug it into their formula to ultimately say, okay, Bridges Library System gets this much county funding, which trickles down to the libraries based on that information. So.
Okay, so they put 1.630199 in the Muskego column and kind of add them all up, and then they have an idea of what the funding for libraries need to be for the county. Is that a simplistic statement, but hopefully accurate?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions or concerns? Okay. Hearing nothing else, all those in favor of approving the allowable cost worksheet, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Abstentions? All right, that passes unanimously. Thank you. Next up, discussion and possible action regarding the library board bylaws updates.
All right, so background document is on page 18. This is a second read of the updates per the bylaws that there needed to be at least 10 days notice, and so that notice was given the last meeting, that the second read would be at this meeting. The two areas, I'm sorry, I didn't print these in color for you who are in person. I really apologize for that. I meant to do that so that you guys would have a better understanding. But the two updates are on page, sorry, my hands are really dry right now, so I'm having trouble flipping.
Only one has a cross. From the nominating committee.
Yep, sorry. Yep, there you go. Page 21, as Tracy said. So the text is in lighter. So sections 1 and sections 2 have the added and or altered language per the board's request about greater definition about the committee work. And you had all asked me to talk to other libraries. I think we had sort of got in the wondering basically what's the most efficient way to basically get trustees nominated to their officer positions, because we want to honor processes, but we also want to be efficient with our time. So I did go and I talked to other libraries, and 3 options sort of filtered to the surface that they do. The first one is most similar to which are currently in the bylaws. So the president selects a nominating committee, and then the nominating committee presents a slate of officers at the next meeting. Nominations are taken from the floor and the board votes. So a couple of libraries that I talked to, that's what they do. That's what's in our bylaws currently. That is the example that the state library division has as their example. Now, granted, it's not required. It's not a state law to do it that way, but that was the example they gave. Option 2, I only heard one library do this, that the president, in consultation with the library director and members of the board, presents a slate of officers, which I thought was a little possibly challenging, that the president was then helping provide nominations for their own position, which works if everyone's cordial, but could be difficult otherwise. And then the third option was quickly discussed in a meeting and decided amongst the group. Like, you know, they put it on the agenda and then they just hash it out in that one meeting. The person that I talked to who did it this way, they said their board was smaller than ours by 2 members, so to whatever extent that impacts that. So that was sort of what happened. Those seem to be the 3 options that came up when I talked to some libraries. And then another process question that came up was how nominating committee seeks out officer candidates. So if you guys were to continue with option 1, this was the research that I did, or talking to some other people and the system director. They said that these 5 things would help sort of, I think, answer some of those concerns or process, which is the nominating committee does not have to be an open meeting. There's no quorum of board members and no formal action taken, so that was a question that came up. When the nominating committee is appointed, current officers can verbally announce if they're interested in serving again or not. I think that was something that came up about how current officers can sort of let people know, like, hey, I'm not owning this position, but also I'd be happy to serve again, to, again, help forward communication. It was recommended that the nominating committee should seek out officer candidates for each role separate from the day they're appointed to the committee. And that gives trustees time to reflect and decide if they are interested. So imagine if you had a scenario basically where, let's say Tracy and Nancy are appointed to the nominating committee tonight by Aaron, and then they look across the room and say, okay, let's just try to hash this out now. The problem there is, maybe Michelle is sitting at home going, you know what, I really think I'm interested, but everything's happening in the next couple of minutes, and she's not quite sure, and she doesn't have time to think, and then her decision is rushed in either, voicing her interest or not voicing her interest. So the recommendation is whenever the nominating committee is appointed, that those types of appointments and conversations happen outside of the meeting so that people have a chance to, Michelle would have a chance to sort of shoot Nancy and Tracy an email and say, hey, you know what, I actually am interested in running for position in case, you'd like to consider nominating me. It gives them a chance to think.
But you still could do that. I mean, if we ask, you still have that till the next meeting that you could let people know you do want to run for that. So I don't see where that's really any kind of conflict.
Yeah, the other thing you could say is that because it's not on the agenda, should it really be, the nominating committee's appointed, but that topic is not necessarily on the agenda for discussion.
We have to close the meeting and then do it.
I don't think we'd have to close the meeting, but it's still not on the agenda technically.
Well, it is. If you're discussing appointing people, to me, I guess I'm looking for the most expedient way to do it, and
sure.
right there to know if the present officers are interested. That's one step out of the way.
Well, and I think that's okay. I think it's okay for the present officers to say, I'm appointing the nominating committee, and then those
Correct.
current officers can say, yeah, we're interested, but also we're open to other stuff. But
Sure.
I think they were saying, for other people in the room, like if the nominating committee just said, oh, Aaron, Tracy, and Gail are interested, okay, you're nominated again next meeting. And
So
then in those 2 minutes, Michelle's like, well, I probably would have, maybe expressed interest down the road. So.
No, I agree with you. The slate wouldn't be presented, but you could still get affirmation.
Yep. No, I think that would be perfectly fine. And then trustees this is just the best practice again. These things here, 1 through 5, are not meant to be in the bylaws, but it's just sort of a framework.
She's on page 18.
I know.
Trustees should be encouraged to reach out to the nominating committee if they're interested in serving, and that the nominating committee should only approach one person at a time for a position and present one person per officer position. So those are just sort of some best practices for the process if you all decide to go with option 1. So that's the research that I did, and there we go. So I think that looking for a motion to accept those changes, and then of course I think I would recommend putting a motion on the floor, and then if you guys decide, you know what, scrap it, I don't like those updates, I don't like any of that research, let's do something different, then we can vote it down in the vote. So
Okay. So at this point,
I guess
should we
my
do
only
here?
concern is that you have a lot of specifics here, and the point of having bylaws is to not have so many specifics. I don't know. I just don't want you to limit yourself to follow.
Yeah. So
step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4.
No, and I'm sorry if I didn't make this more clear. So those 1 through 5, it says process questions came up, not part of the bylaws. So none of these things should be in the bylaws because you're right. We want that flexibility. That's just a process thing to help guide people, because some people had sort of said, like, I'm elected to the nominating committee, but what exactly am I supposed to do? And so this is just more of a guidance document.
Okay.
The actual changes are just on page, where was I again? 21, that stuff that's light. So
I hate to sound like a skeptic, but with such a small group, this seems rather formal to do it. Am I wrong?
Well, you have to have formality with being that it's a city board, and you should be following Robert's rules.
yeah, and the board could theoretically grow at any time too, I suppose, right? As maybe the population.
Has it ever?
And how would that happen?
So I think it would have to be discussed at the city
Probably.
ordinance committee
It would,
meeting.
yeah, I'm sure it would come from City Hall, right?
Mhm.
Well, and that's a state statute.
City government.
The amount of
The number on
people,
your board
it is a
has-
state statute, so it would require quite a bit of change, I think. In
So
the
is
city.
it commensurate with your city population?
Yeah.
Is it?
And I
It
think
does.
25,000 is like that's like a magic number I heard.
It was a tier,
So-
but that won't change our trustees, I don't think.
Yeah.
So,
But no, I do agree that, I mean, having this as a document to reflect to, you know, if you're like, how do I do this or whatever, that's
Yep.
great, but to put it all in
Yeah.
your bylaws, I think it would just be too
Yeah.
limiting.
yeah, so that's not in there. Only Article 5, Section 1 and 2 have that stuff changed. So,
Yeah,
I'm fine with that.
I think we need a certain level of formality. Again, I mean, we just discussed this, and I know that that's a stretch. I mean, you could have the makeup of the board eventually change based on population and or other factors that come from the city or the state. But regardless of the board's makeup and possibly seeing it increase, just the you know, trying to keep possible personal vendettas, goofy situations where you have, you know, kind of personal politics or kind of personal
Agendas.
conflicts between people.
Yeah, people have agendas. And
Right, so we want to do our best to protect, I guess, the integrity of the board as a whole, protect the process, have a certain level of formality that allows us to do the best we can to mitigate, you know, those possible effects. So,
And Erin, and Gail here.
Yeah.
I don't want to say we don't have any choice, but to have some formalities, and I mean this with all due respect to any service club or anything like that out there. We are not a service club. We are a board of an entity, okay? And I think we need these formalities. I'm not saying I like them. I'm not saying any of those things, but I think we really need to have some formalities for, you know, the entity that we serve. And, we're not I'm trying to think of the right word.
Not a club.
It is kind of a formal
It's not a
body,
club.
even though we're a very collegial group. But just statutorily and all those kinds of things, it's a lot different from, you know, a service club or a social club that gets together and picks who's going to do all the jobs next year. And I don't mean to sound disparaging in that respect because they're equally important. Okay.
no, very well
But
said.
in
Brittany,
this circumstance, I think we need the formality, in my humble opinion.
Mm-hmm.
my only concern is where is this
Agreed.
document going to be kept? Is this an addendum onto the bylaws, or is this, like, where do we keep formal documents when it comes to the nominating committee or the,
so you're not talking about the bylaws.
nope.
You're
I'm
talking about this,
your
like, this
formality.
workflow
Yeah, yeah.
process thing.
Like, how do they get, like, how will we know where to find that document and where to,
That's a good question. We don't
Yeah.
really have a place for. I suppose, without any formal, I would print it off and hand it to each board member. And in theory, all of you should have had a folder with orientation documents, and you would keep it in that. Eventually, if we wanted to move to a Google Dropbox, I'd be happy to set one of those up for board members to keep those documents there as well. So, but yeah, as of
Brittany,
now,
where
we
do you-
just have print.
Where do you keep documents like when we discuss, you know, like heaven forbid, but that there would be some kind of natural disaster or something like that, and we would bring school children over here? That's not in any bylaws. That's not any. But where do you keep something like that? Because maybe there should be a repository for any of those types of procedural things.
Yeah, and I suppose, I mean, that is something that the board approves, but I wouldn't consider that a board document, if that makes sense, right? Like you assign the agreement, but it's not something that you need for the day-to-day operations. That document just allows me.
Or something like that, where, you know, somebody in a hurry needed to grab a policy, and let's say you were off that day, or, you know, something like that. Just a kind of a central place where these, I don't call them secondary, but I don't know what else other term to use. secondary to the bylaws in this case, or secondary to whatever, that there is a place where somebody could grab that information in a hurry.
So for documents that are important operationally to staff, like the emergency evacuation document, that is all kept in a server secured drive for staff.
Okay.
Again, not to sound lack of transparent, but once the board approves it, it's not operationally important for board members unless you were idly curious about it, in which case you have your board packet to refer back to. But staff have access to those types of operational documents.
Okay.
Now, for documents like the workflow for a nominating committee that is operationally important to the trustees because you guys are using it to operate your trustee duties, those, aside from printing it off and handing you a final copy for your trustee folder, we don't have anything more fancy than that. But I would be happy to put together a Google Drive or whatever would be most. It would have to be something
done somewhat similarly to what you do for staff, and I'm just throwing that out there because just as an idea, because I have no idea exactly what you're doing for staff for all that stuff, but
yeah, I mean,
just something.
That's a city secured server. I don't think I can necessarily create access to that, so it would have to be like a cloud
I was
drive.
mainly just thinking, because aren't our bylaws on the website?
Yep.
Okay, can't you just at the end of the bylaws have an addendum with this document to say, if you are on the nominating committee, this is your...
Yeah,
I mean, you can just put that at the end of the bylaws,
I mean, as long as you're
have it available.
Just call it a guiding document.
I'd be happy to, I would add that as a secondary link. I wouldn't want it to be attached to the bylaws unless it made it very clear this is not a bylaw.
We have that in our bylaws for our college board, where it has the roles and the responsibilities of each role and stuff.
Yep.
They're just an addendum on the bylaws.
Okay.
So I don't know. I mean, just to make it easier, so we don't have multiple.
Well, that would be a lot easier.
Yeah, I mean, sure. I'd be happy to create a link to that as long as the board is okay with the fact that it's sort of an internal document for you guys, but technically it's going to be
it's part
anyone
of the rules
can click on it
of the bylaws. So it's like sort of
Yeah, I'm certainly.
I just don't want to make it complicated. I was just trying to think of like where are people going to find this information?
Yeah. If you would like an electronic location for it aside from a print, I'd be happy to add that as just this attachment to it. So, yep, I can do that.
And we also have the hard copy for our folders at home.
I can make I'll print that off now that it seems like that's the direction we want to go, and I'll hand that out to you guys at the next meeting.
Thank you.
Then I motion to approve.
That was my next question. What's our next move here on the chessboard? So Tracy has motioned for approval
With bylaws updates.
of the bylaws update.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. Thank you. It's been a long day. Is there a second? Barb will second. Thank you. And then just for the sake of making sure we have everything addressed, any additional discussion, questions, concerns? Anything at all? Okay. Well, hearing nothing else, all those in favor of approving these library board bylaws updates, please signify by saying aye.
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 Okay. Are there any opposed? Abstentions? All right. That motion does pass unanimously. Thank you. Good work, everybody. Next up on our agenda, under new business, discussion regarding the presidential appointment of 2021 nominating committee. So I'll throw this question out there. Who would like to serve on the nominating committee this year? How about two lucky folks here to do an important job?
I did it last year, so I think, in fairness.
And how difficult.
It should rotate.
I can't have all the fun.
Yeah, well, since you did it last year, you know the job well.
I will work with you if
Sure, fine. If nobody else wants it,
Yeah.
Anybody else want to be
Viewers
on the
at home?
nominating committee? Very
Nominating
simple
committee?
job. It's very easy to do it wrong.
All right. Well, very, very good. We have Trustee Schrader and Trustee Kangas here.
So then at this point, we can ask, can't we?
Yeah.
Yeah,
At
you
this
may.
point, we can ask, Aaron, would you like to continue being the president?
I would like to continue serving as president as long as you find folks will continue to tolerate my occasional antics and humor and wise leadership.
Yeah, okay. So who else do we have then? We have a treasurer. Who is the treasurer? Would you like to continue as
That would
treasurer?
be fine.
Oh, this is easy.
Well, that's why I thought we could do this, 1, 2, 3. And then we have, what else? We have one more, don't we?
Vice President
Vice
Conkle.
president. Who is the vice president?
Well, then I'm going to mess things up here for you guys.
Yeah, Gail, come on.
I mean, I've done it multiple years. I'm okay with continuing to do it, but as I've said many times, I do not own this job. It's not a hard job. You run a meeting on occasion and, you know, that type of thing. And I think it would be really great if somebody new would come into this position so they can learn it, maybe learn to run a meeting, that type of thing, if and when that does come up. And so I'm prepared to certainly relinquish my position.
Okay, so why don't we accept you? But if anybody else is interested, there will be no hard feelings if you also would
Absolutely
like to be
not.
accepted.
I would encourage somebody to come forward.
All right.
Okay.
So contact either of us if you are interested before the next meeting.
And then
For the
Nancy
first
and Barb,
vice
if
president.
you could just email me with your slate that you want to present so I
Sure.
can put it in the minutes before the next meeting.
Okay.
And I'll put a reminder note on myself to maybe reach out to you if...
Should we have a deadline then for people to respond? Do you want to set a deadline for
Yeah.
when you'd like the info?
What
Yes.
else do we need?
Well, if someone would like to run for first vice
Yeah,
president.
we do want to give people a chance.
Yeah.
So just so you know, I always try to get the next meeting is May 18th. I always try to get the board packet out Thursday afternoon or Friday morning, which means that it would probably be helpful for me to get that information by the 19th, Wednesday the 19th at the
Right.
latest. So
Now, Barbara, I will be
Yes.
in Alaska
Oh,
from May 3rd to June 3rd.
okay.
Just so you know. Which means I will not be at the May meeting.
Okay. All right, so I guess then anyone interested could maybe contact me, seeing as Nancy will be very busy.
I won't be busy, I'll be far away.
Well, no, I mean between now and then, I'll
Oh.
be busy getting ready to go.
No, I don't need to.
All right,
Okay. Very good. So if anyone else is interested in serving in a role
Contact me.
or has any other questions or concerns, please feel free to reach out to either Nancy or Barb. But contact Barb after
May 1st to June 1st, I'm gone.
May 1st to
A
June.
month. Yeah.
Okay.
should we give our phone numbers to make it easier too?
Oh, it's my cell phone, you've all got it.
yeah, or email too would work.
Okay,
All the emails are listed on the library's
Yeah.
website.
all right, we're set then.
Well, very good. Well, thank you, everybody. I appreciate that. Thank you, Barb and Nancy in particular, for stepping up here. Moving along then on the agenda, discussion and possible action regarding the continuation of the library board's mask policy. Brittany.
All right, I'm just, we've had this conversation. There's not a whole lot of new facts, but I'll just, if you would indulge me. Whoops, nope, didn't want to do that.
I think we also have to keep in mind that email from April 11th.
Yeah, definitely. That was staff member that gave a public comment. And I'm just going to add Waukesha County and CDC still recommend masks for indoors at this time. 14 libraries in our system have mask policies. Of the 10 that don't, 7 have a population of under 5,900. So Muskego has about 25,000. And I did a little bit of research because that was part of my guide that I said that whenever I was looking at services and assessing conditions of the pandemic, I would look to what our neighbors and what else was going on, because I think there's 2 fair concerns brought up to the board or by the board last time. One was it was, what does the community, what is the community telling us? And just wanted to throw out there that it is not unusual for public buildings that have the public going in and out to require masks. This is just based on yesterday from Janesville Road, just off of Muskego Janesville Road, all the buildings that have mask requirements. So,
did you go door to door?
I did actually.
I was joking.
Do they enforce them though?
No, they don't.
They don't enforce them.
No, they don't.
Well, I can't claim to have stripped off my mask and walked into each of them to test that out. I will just say that's what the signage says and the expectation. So Wisconsin vaccines for 16 and up opened up April 5th. Likely by June 1st, those who would have wanted the vaccine have finished their series. Staff would have been fully vaccinated. My recommendation is that if we presume that on April 5th it opened up to everyone and they were maybe trying to get schedule their appointments within those 2 weeks after, and then the 4 weeks in between doses, and then the 2 weeks after to be fully vaccinated, June 1st would at least provide more assurances that we've reduced the risk based on the vaccination schedules. So I know the concern was, 1, what is Muskego doing? And then 2, will this be endless, right? And I think that is a concern that people have, and I do think that June 1st provides a little bit more assurances. So.
Once your staff receives their vaccination, will they be comfortable disbanding the mask requirement?
I think that obviously vaccines aren't fully effective, but they're very effective. I think they would feel more comfortable. But the thing to consider is this is not just a couple staff members saying, I don't feel comfortable. It's more of a general, as a public building, where we have people coming in from Racine County, Milwaukee County, Waukesha County. As a public building, what responsibility do we have, not just to our staff, but also to the patrons that are coming in and out? So,
is it possible to revisit this each month and see where we're standing each month before we say June 1st for sure?
And that's why we structured that in this way, just so we can continuously review it.
Yeah.
Good question.
I just still feel so passionate about you're healthy, I'm healthy, you're healthy, why are we having masks on? We need to get to the point where we're like, we're okay without masks. Mm-hmm. And I think we have to start to...
Well, I have to tell you, I have asthma, and wearing a mask is HE double toothpicks.
Yeah.
I cannot breathe with these things on, and it's just horrible. And you're not getting enough oxygen by having the mask on.
Well, and just so you know, Barb, there's a medical exemption. So for people who have a medical exemption that makes mask wearing difficult, we don't require that. If someone comes in and we say, hey, may I offer you a free mask? And they say, I'm sorry, medical exemption, then we say, how can we help you today?
And you don't ask for proof of that?
No.
I had a question. What was I going to ask now? Maybe it's that lack of oxygen that I'm getting too. I'm so used to wearing these all day, every day now.
Speaking of
and
that,
face
does
shields.
everybody know that the verdict was guilty? And
yeah, I heard that on the way
over. Yeah, we should probably not talk about that in the meeting either.
Okay.
Let's see. Without going into too much detail, because I understand that these are private medical matters as well, but could you shed some light on maybe number of recent or not so distant past cases in which staff have become infected with COVID? Is it a concern right now amongst library staff? Have there been recent cases, and if so, could you shed some light possibly on numbers?
At this library, or just in general?
At this library, at ours.
We have not had any recent cases, which, the cyclical logic that we could go back and forth on is that because COVID is so low that it's not being transmitted in this community, or is it because we're all required to wear masks that, we're not getting sick? So we could go back and forth on that.
So moved.
So I do think staff considerations are very important.
Sure,
we're
Tracy
here, 8 hours a day working alongside each other. So certainly our exposure is higher because we're having hundreds of people come in the building and we're working alongside staff. But it is not just a question of our staff. It's a question of people who are coming in the building. And some may not want to wear masks, but some may feel more comfortable coming in because those masks are there. And some people can get vaccinated, but some people can't for medical reasons. So all of that sort of factors in to that. And
quite frankly, some people won't.
And it's true. And that's why I do think that, as you said, month by month, at June, we've reasonably reduced the likelihood, at least. And again, I still think it's important to evaluate it in May, but my recommendation is not this month, not right now. And I think we're obviously getting closer to the point where it's no longer necessary, very much so. But public health recommendations say right now we're a public building that have many, many different people coming in from many different communities. And we're indoor. It's not unusual in Muskego to see this expectation right now, and so I do recommend continuing it for the next month.
Okay. Amongst your staff who have been vaccinated or either one dose or both doses if necessary, do you know how close you are to having all staff vaccinated who want to get vaccinated? Any numbers or insight on that?
I don't have that information. I let staff know that if they were having trouble getting an appointment, they should let me know so that I could help them get an appointment. I know that not everyone is yet. I believe there may be at least one individual that can't medically get it.
Okay.
But, and again, I can't, even though we had a very helpful piece of feedback from a staff perspective, I do really want to stress that this policy is not just because some staff feel uncomfortable. It's a general public health recommendation for the good of our patrons as well.
Sure. I get
Well,
that.
in my mind, the people who are really fearful of this should wear the masks, and those who aren't fearful shouldn't have to wear the masks.
And my general position on this right now, where we stand, I mean, as much as I love and value our patrons, because that's why we're open, that's why we're in business, quote unquote. I mean, I would be more concerned with staff right now than patrons, because I would think that patrons know and understand what they're getting into if they choose to come unmasked, or if they choose to go out in public. Staff have to be here, they work here, and I don't want to run into the situation where we end up having to close or reduce hours or services because staff are either fearful or because staff are getting sick. So I'm a little more concerned right now about staff than I am, generally speaking, with patrons. They know and understand what they're getting into if they go out in public. They know any possible risk. So that's why I'm asking kind of these questions on where the staff is at as far as vaccinations and any numbers as far as COVID cases go.
I mean, I don't see a problem that if you had a staff member that says, I want to wear a mask, but the whole entire library has no mask on, that's not, like, I don't understand, like, the logic between having healthy people within the library having a mask on because you yourself are fearful. Like, something has to be kind of identified out of that.
So I think that's making the presumption and the hope that people that are coming in are healthy.
Well, I mean, if that's something that your staff is concerned about, then I say we buy an iPad and we have the face screening where they are being tested for their temperatures and they're asked the questions, do you have a fever, cough, shortness of breath, whatever, and have them screened and then go in. Because if they're healthy, they should be fine to go into the library without a mask. And your staff should feel comfortable that they're healthy and they're not going to be sick from them.
So then we come down to the balance of what is more intrusive, the requirement of a mask or the asking of those questions, the scanning of a temperature. I think that there would be patrons who would also be concerned about that.
I finally go back to restaurants, and the 3 I've been in have all taken my temperature. I even asked Bartolotta's, if I were in a carpool of 5 and I had the temperature, would you let my friends come in? And they said no.
Yeah.
No, because you've been in the car with them, and you know.
And actually, the temperature is actually kind of useless.
Well, it's not
entirely useless, but it's been kind of ruled out as an effective.
I don't know. We do it every
now.
single day at work.
Do you still?
Oh yeah. You take your temperature, you ask the questions, and then
you can't even go in.
So many people that do get infected, I guess, don't even show a temperature.
Right. But you're sick.
That's
though.
why it's kind of useless.
If you have a fever, you're probably sick with something.
Well,
it doesn't necessarily mean COVID. It could be that you have some other illness going on. So
maybe the flu.
Yeah, it could be the flu. Could be anything. So it's really just the fact that you want to stress: go to wherever you are when you're healthy. Stay home when you're sick.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that I think that many people do that, but I have had people come in who say, I just dropped off my husband, he has COVID, he's at the hospital, I'm here to pick up my books. So, and I know that that's just one case, but that was not the only case we've had where that has happened. And like I said, this is not a long-term thing. Nobody likes the masks than the library staff. We're wearing them 8 and 9 hours a day. This is not something that I love, and I don't like causing undue strain and stress on patrons. We certainly want to make them happy. I'm asking for a little bit longer, just based on the recommendations. But again, knowing that the logic that I'm seeing tells us that the end is closer than the beginning on this.
Well, and just be certain that come July, when it's summer school started, and so we're not probably going to have masks on the kids for school. Mm-hmm. Come fall, when they're back to school, there probably won't be masks. So people are going to have to start grappling with the fact that masks may not be here anymore.
Right. And that is why, like I said, I've charted it off, and to me that date seems reasonable, provided that we don't get to June 1st and we see that cases have, quadrupled or done something really silly. But I don't take this lightly. I did the research. I've tried to math it out. That seems like, based on what I'm hearing, based on the evidence-based research that I was doing, it's not forever. And, indicators like that, like you saying, like, hey, I think the school district by July is going to go to this. That's a helpful indicator, similar to, these indicators. Right now, these places, whether they're being perfect at it or not, this is what they're expecting of their patrons. So it would not be a surprise. We're not having patrons walk in here saying, what, you require masks? It's what they expect for the most part.
Well, I think most people want to respect other people, so.
Do you have any insight lately as far as, I guess I'll just call it like compliance from patrons, or any bigger episodes of refusal, or just complaining about the policy in general? Anything that you can shed insight on as far as patrons go lately?
You know, we have not had any major incidents. The people of this community are lovely and respectful people. And we've had, I think during this entire time, I've maybe had 2 people walk out. Just say like, oh, if I have to wear a mask, then I'm leaving. 2 people out of the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds since we've been open since last May, June. Most people, if I do approach them and say, oh, can I offer you a free mask? They go, oh my gosh, I forgot it. It's in my coat pocket or it's in my car. So we have not had any major incidents, just maybe 1 or 2 people who walked out. It hasn't been that way in a couple of months now. So
I just wonder how many people aren't coming because of the mask, because that's what's happening at St. Leonard's. Where, people just don't go to church because there's the mask mandate.
Did they drop that yet?
Not yet. It's getting close.
The Archbishop said you could drop it.
Yep.
Father Dan's paranoid, I know.
Yeah.
We know Father Dan.
And I won't. I'm sure there are some people, and I couldn't say that for certain. I have not had anyone come to me to place a formal complaint.
I think they won't. Just whatever.
And I think that if you look at our numbers from the library
I was just going to say the service numbers seem to be going back up.
They're going up. So it's not so challenging to people's abilities that, we're seeing mass people saying, I refuse to be a patron of this library because of this. So
I still think that it would be okay to revisit this again in May, so that we're...
And that is what the policy says. It says the Muskego Library mask policy will be reviewed continually.
Yes.
And so I'm happy to bring it back in May.
Yeah, I mean, we can simply take no action tonight, and the policy still stands until at least the next board meeting. Whatever the board feels like doing or not doing tonight. Any thoughts, questions, concerns at home?
What is City Hall doing?
They're not masking.
City Hall does, I believe they still have a sign in the doorway, but there's no requirement that I see.
No, there isn't.
No, there isn't.
I don't think there was on election day.
But I would argue that they have a very different, people come in, they pay a utility bill, and they leave. They maybe come for a meeting, but I would say that the foot traffic at the library is probably more. I would say that we have a variety of communities. It's not just the city of Muskego. We have people coming from New Berlin, which has high accounts, Racine, Milwaukee. People come and use our services from a variety of communities, so you're seeing that varied foot traffic as well. So different space.
Well, another big difference is the people at City Hall are behind their desks and all that. You're very interactive with patrons.
Yeah, being 6
too, so
yeah,
that would be a difference, I guess.
Yeah, we are often not 6 feet from our patrons. We can't be, because we're teaching them how to do technology. We're helping them with the self-check machine. We're showing them books. So we're not able to maintain that 6 feet of distance. So really, the masks are.
City Hall isn't either.
I know. 6 feet or 3 feet. I'm not 3 feet away from from patrons either. We're all up in each other in a professional way.
I don't think I have any other questions or concerns. So what is kind of the consensus this evening? Again, we can simply do nothing, and we'll revisit this in May. And if there are any other questions or concerns or data points that we can investigate for you prior to the May meeting, let us know that tonight, and we'll try to have information readily available. So we can do nothing and wait until May, or if someone wants to propose something, and we'll take a vote on it tonight. What's kind of the consensus?
I mean, I personally think it should be a personal preference, and that the mask mandate can go away.
Any other thoughts, concerns general direction that we might want to go in tonight?
Well, again, I work at the medical college, and they're still saying wear masks, socially distance, wash hands, because there still are cases, and the more virulent ones are, attacking the rest of the world. That's why Europe's shutting down again. So I would say we should do what the majority of other businesses around are doing, and a lot of the public entities, and keep adhering to the science that says to wear them. That's my opinion. So keep it until May, and then let's rediscuss in May.
I agree with looking at it again in May, leaving it as is now, same reasons as Michelle.
Okay. Any other thoughts, concerns, questions?
I agree with both of them. Revisit.
Would you like to make any kind of motion?
I just won't vote for it. I mean, you can go ahead and do a vote. I just will not.
Unless you want to make a motion to lift the mandate tonight. Because otherwise the other option, it sounds like just by consensus, would do nothing. And just wait until May.
Excuse me, I guess I do have another question here. What is the CDC recommendation right now?
The CDC
They
recommendation.
just recommend them.
Yeah, indoor.
They don't say they
I'm
should
sorry.
be a mandate. They just recommend them.
Yeah, the CDC recommends masks indoors in public places.
The WHO, the World Health Organization, though, says it should only be healthy. There should not be healthy individuals. It should only be those that are sick, immunocompromised, or concerned.
Mm-hmm.
The World Health says just sick
Yep.
people should wear them, or if you're
Yep.
concerned about it.
Yep.
And that makes sense.
Any other thoughts? Would you like to propose something?
No, because I think the majority.
Right.
So it's like this is kind of a moot point.
Right.
I'm still giving you the opportunity.
Eventually, you guys will get to the point where I'm at. So we'll just wait till that happens.
Okay, if that's the general consensus tonight, we'll simply do nothing. We won't take a vote, and we'll revisit the matter in May.
Okay. So policy continues, no action taken. I'll make a note of that for the minutes.
No action taken. In the meantime, are there any other particular questions, concerns, data points that you would like us to investigate for the May meeting?
I would just highly suggest that your staff, if they are concerned, get immunized and take that advantage of that, because that might make them feel somewhat more protected.
I did, yeah. I have tried to provide guidance for those that wish it. So
because you can pretty much go anywhere and get immunized now.
Yep,
Yeah.
yeah. And it's
Everything's
gotten.
opened.
I got 3
Everything's
invites
open.
in the past week
Yes.
from my
Yeah, they're
pretty much can go
begging you to
anywhere.
come in
I do
now.
have friends who
Right.
refuse to.
They
go
are.
regardless.
Yeah.
They just
Yeah,
have
the
no
floodgates have
intention of
opened
getting
as
a
far
shot.
as
And they'll be fine.
availability.
They'll be fine.
Yeah.
Right.
I guess if there is some information out what's going on lately with the variants, okay? Because, Pfizer's talking about requiring a booster in 6 months for people who are vaccinated. A month from now, what's the latest information on that? So if you're looking for things to
Yep.
And Europe is
research,
closing
and I'm
down.
not sure you are, but if you are,
Well,
then
The
that
country
would
I just
probably
put
be a
2 grand
topic
on the
that
visit is.
I'll keep an.
is
I'll
going
keep.
to change from month to month.
Yep. I'll keep an eye on that and bring any info I have.
Okay. All right. So thank you, everybody, for your input and your questions and concerns and points this evening. We'll simply conclude that with no action tonight. So moving along in the agenda, communications and miscellaneous business is authorized by law. I have nothing. Brittany, anything else under that?
Oh, this is just a small FYI. The owners of Milk Can across the street their parking lot has been incredibly busy because they just opened, and so they asked if they could use the library's parking lot for employee parking, just so that, to get through the big surge initially. So I said yes. So the employees have been parking on the far end. It isn't impacting our library services at all. So anyway, I'm not sure how long that's going to last, but I just wanted to give you guys a heads
I
up.
thought something was up because there was
Yeah,
cars
I
up in the
wondered
front.
why
Yeah.
it was over the weekend.
Yeah.
Wanted to be a good neighbor.
I
We
think
have the
that's
space right
wonderful.
now. And
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
it's
think
been
that's wonderful
jam-packed.
that we
Can't imagine how long you have to wait for a
builds a
hamburger.
community.
Thank you for doing
So
that.
that it is a
Being able to-
Hamburgers, yeah.
And cheese curds. I've not gone over there yet. I just looked at the menu.
Yeah, I can't wait to get over there myself, actually, one of these days.
That was all I had on that.
Are they good?
I have
not tried it yet.
I had chicken strips and they were quite good.
Yeah.
I had a burger and it was really good, and the service is so quick. I was shocked how quickly I got my food.
Really?
Wonderful.
Nice. Thank you for sharing all that. My mouth is starting to water.
Yeah, juicy burger sounds good.
All right, well, we made excellent timing this evening, I would argue. It is before 6:30, so at this point, if nothing else, motion for adjournment, please.
So moved.
Tracy motions, is there a second?
I will.
All right, we have a second by Nancy here. Any discussion on the motion to adjourn?
No.
Any questions or concerns? No? Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? You're not quite sure how you'd like to
Does you
vote
want
on
to get
this?
home?
No.
Does anybody in the room have any affiliation with Waukesha State Bank?
No.
We're adjourned at
Okay.
6:26.
All right, I'm going to end the meeting then for those of you virtually.
Is that bad?
Yeah.
Good night.
Oh.
Thanks, everyone.
So
Have a good night.
if I'm on this